Hey guys, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the Girls Plus Club Body with your host, Rosie Breen. And today we are diving deep and getting into one of the most important topics when it comes to learning to love yourself, protecting your energy, and just helping you to create the life that you want to live. When people talk about self-love, and I'm the exact same, you often hear the words like face masks, skincare, solo dates, walks, fresh air, all these things, right? That definitely help and actually are the little actions and contributors to how to maintain a healthy relationship with yourself. Whether that's through taking time out and spending it on yourself, it's a really important way to look after yourself. Give yourself breathing space, not constantly be devoting your time and energy to other people. Whether you love them or not, it doesn't matter. You still need to put that time and energy back into yourself, which is why I'm a big fan of solo dates, as you guys know. Seeing Saltburn at the cinema on my own though, not the smartest idea for a solo date, let me tell you. It was a fantastic film, and because I've got like a background in theatre, I really appreciated the way that it was filmed, but it was disturbing, and I'm so glad that when I was watching it, there was this couple behind me, and they obviously were like on one of their first few dates because they're a little bit awkward, you know, when you're like kind of people watching a little bit too hard. So the guy dropped the popcorn, or the girl dropped the popcorn during that scene, like a good minute into that scene. And everyone in the cinema just burst out laughing. It was amazing. Totally broke like the awkwardness. And I felt really on edge and tense because I was there on my own. Like, how stupid. Why have I gone on my own? But it was an amazing solo date, nevertheless. Anyway, I totally digressed. These are all really important parts of, I guess, your self-love routine, the things you do to look after yourself, the self-care. But what I say trumps all of that and really is what's going to help you in your life and help you change your mindset, but also to help you change the way that you have relationships with people around you, because the relationship you have with yourself is the most important, and it truly reflects in the relationships that you have with others. And so, yeah, we're going to strip it back, dive deep today, and I'm going to talk you through exactly why setting boundaries is important. And you're probably here today because you know you want to set boundaries. So I'm going to share with you a few experiences of mine to show you exactly how to do it. So growing up, I always had a bit of a funny relationship with my parents, and I would say we were quite a dysfunctional family to the point where we couldn't function. We couldn't function to a point where I thought it was normal, but we also just couldn't function. At like Christmas, there'd always be arguments. When I'd come home from university, there'd always be a lot of tension. It was just dysfunctional. There wasn't any signs of communication. There were no sit down, let's just talk it through. There were never any moments of, okay, we're arguing, but we know we love each other. No. No. Actually, it was the reverse. It got to the point where I thought, my parents don't even want me. They don't want me to be their child. They don't love me. They feel nothing towards me. I generally felt like I was such a burden on their life to the point where I just wanted nothing to do with them because I didn't like how I felt about myself when I was around them. Through the last few years of therapy, but also through like personal processing and understanding and healing, there's definitely been accumulation of things. First off, the generation before us, like our parents' generation, have to be the worst generation of communicators that I've ever known. And maybe they're not the worst, and maybe it's a total lack of awareness on my behalf because I didn't grow up with grandparents, but maybe they are slightly better than the generation before them, and we are only slightly better than them now. But the way in which that I'm such a literal thinker, I really struggled with my parents' lack of communication, and to the point where they would never just point blank say anything. And I was lucky if I even got a hint. But where I am a literal thinker, and I never really picked up on those like social cues or communication cues, if you will, it was just a recipe for disaster. But it's taken me a long time because for the majority of my life, I blamed them. I thought it was their fault. I thought they're the ones that can't communicate. And I didn't realize how much of a literal thinker I actually was. And so there's the first thing, identifying a little problem, acceptance that it's not totally the other person, and there is a sense of responsibility upon yourself. That's part of healing. But anyways, I'm digressing again because what I really want to talk to you guys about today is boundaries. So I think you get the picture. I didn't have a good relationship with my parents growing up. We've talked about it so many times before, and it was really hard. It was physically draining. And I remember one of my aunts who I'm really close to, I would always run to her for any of the issues, you know, when I was having a breakdown and I was feeling so distressed, like I didn't know what to do with myself and my emotions were just all over the place. She would always say to me, look, at the end of the day, your parents are who they are and you can't change them. The only thing you can do is change yourself or change your mindset or the way that you approach the relationship. And my God, I was too young to understand what she meant, but those words did weigh heavy and they spoke volumes to me, because years down the line, I finally learned what she meant by that. It was setting boundaries. Yes, you can't control other people. You can't, no matter who they are, whether they're a good person in your life or a bad person, you can't control them. And all you can control is how you let it make you feel. And so a way of protecting yourself and protecting how you're going to allow someone else to make you feel is through setting boundaries. It's the only way. And so, for example, my mum would invite me over for a Sunday dinner, like an afternoon, whatever. Come over for Sunday dinner. It'll be lovely. We'll play some games. It'll be me, you, your dad, and, you know, we'll just have a bit of quality time together. Whilst that sounds lovely, and my God, Rosie, why are you complaining about such a generous and lovely invite? I would feel so tense and I would immediately feel guilty because I immediately didn't want to do that. I didn't want to spend time with them because I didn't like how I felt when I was around them. I didn't like how I felt in the lead up to it, and I didn't like how I felt after. It was all so much anxiety and tension wrapped up with guilt because they wanted to spend time with me, but why don't I want to spend time with them? Well, I know why, because of all the issues and the arguments and the dysfunction and the toxicity my whole childhood. That doesn't just disappear overnight because mum's being nice. That still lives in you until you deal with it. And where I hadn't dealt with that head on yet, I would feel this immense sense of guilt and this immense sense of frustration that she was even asking me in the first place. And it got to the stage where I would have a go at my mum and I would say, well, stop asking me to come over all the time because it's making me feel like shit. And she said, well, I'm sorry, I'm just, you know, it's an olive branch. And in her mind and in her eyes, and on that side of the table, she's actually doing nothing wrong, like totally nothing wrong. If anything, she's being a really great mother. But because I've still got all this tension and all these issues built up inside of me, what it's making me feel is anxious and guilt and frustration. And so take a deep breath and revisit how you're going to approach those conversations. What I said to my mum is, look, I still feel very hot-headed and I still feel very frustrated with the issues and the dysfunction and everything that's gone on over the last 15 years, to the point where I don't feel comfortable coming over on a Sunday afternoon to relax. It's not relaxing for me. And I just told her, look, I need you to be patient and I need you to understand that when I say no, it's probably not because I don't want to, it's because I feel like it's not good for me in that moment. And she didn't take it well. She kind of just shrugged it off and was like, okay, and then moved on. I'd be surprised if she even remembered the conversation. But it was a conversation that happened nevertheless, and it was a really important conversation because for me and then on after, I started just saying no, but because I knew I had explained to her how I was feeling and how the invitation was making me feel to begin with, the sense of guilt just started to disintegrate. It started to dissolve. And the more I said no, the more comfortable I got saying no. And I think that's where it starts with boundary setting. You know, you hear people say no is a full sentence, so use it. And it's very true. If something doesn't meet your needs or something doesn't appeal to you or something is not going to serve you and you feel a sense of pressure to do it, you can absolutely turn around and say no. You don't have to explain yourself. You don't have to justify yourself. You can say no. It's a full sentence. And I think it's a really important thing to do and something that you can only get comfortable doing through practice. And so a lot of you guys have written to me before and said, we understand we have to set boundaries and I know how to. I don't know how to not feel guilty about it. I think all of us have a sense of that in us because we're human and we naturally want to please others. We want to be a part of a pack and we want to feel that sense of belonging, which typically happens when you're either in a relationship with someone or you have a relationship with someone, particularly your family. And so it does go against our natural instincts and what nature says for us to do. But in reality, we have to protect our mental health and our psyche, and we have to understand that actually saying no and setting these boundaries and having a sense of distance between me and my mum or me and my dad or whoever it is in my life is actually going to serve me more in the long term. Now, look, when I was setting these boundaries and I was getting comfortable saying no, I still felt guilty. And there are still times now where I have a sense of guilt. You're probably never going to 100% not feel that. There are people in your life where you're not going to feel that, because actually through learning, through evolving in your relationship with yourself, you realize what your worth is and you start to understand your true value and you start to protect your own energy and you start to protect your environment. And when you start to respect that side of your life, you start feeling less guilty for distancing yourself from the side or the people in your life who don't serve you, who don't help you to feel this way. And maybe they don't spark any sort of emotion in you. Maybe they don't piss you off and they don't not serve you. Maybe you just haven't got the interest in pursuing a friendship with them or a relationship with them, and that's also okay. And so it's a bit of a catch-22. You have to get comfortable saying no. You'll never 100% be comfortable doing so with the people close to you, but through practicing doing it, you will get more comfortable and it will become easier and people will respect it more because they see that you respect yourself. And then I think there becomes this general understanding that the people in your life know that you are someone who looks after themselves and you are someone who will set boundaries for themselves and you are someone who, will say no if they have to. And so my answer to your question of how do I set boundaries without feeling guilty, to be honest, you just have to practice. You have to practice, but you also need to consciously remind yourself every time you feel that ounce of guilt that you're doing this for yourself. You're doing this because you need to. And sitting here today, the day after spending my mum's 60th with her in London, spending 11 hours one-on-one, not something I ever would have thought I'd say when I started this podcast 1 year ago, but it's now my reality. Because I set those boundaries and this is the result of setting those boundaries. So for every dinner I didn't attend, for every afternoon I didn't pop over, and for every phone call I wasn't in the mindset to answer, I've obtained the space through protecting my environment to the point where I looked after myself and I did what I know I needed to do. And now I can have a healthy relationship with my family and we can function as a family, because we all understand that yes, we are dysfunctional and we are a little bit hot-headed and we've got a couple of ADHDers in the family, so it's hard, but we do love each other in quite a stupid way. And look, let's put family aside for a minute. Let's talk about setting boundaries with friends. It is the same sort of method. It is practicing saying no, and depending on who they are in your life, sitting down and explaining to them why that's not something that you want to do right now and why they're just going to have to accept that, or just saying no and walking away. And I think it's really important to understand when it comes to friendships, your friends are totally by choice. I mean, family, you are slightly stuck with them for at least a little period of time. And so with friendships, it's funny because it's by choice. Unlike family, where you have got a sense of unity where you can't really escape, at least for a little part of your life. I mean, I'm very, very supportive of people walking away from their toxic families, or families that do not serve them and do not bring them joy. But with friendships, you have that absolute and utmost choice from the get-go. You don't have to be friends with anybody that you don't want to. And I think a really important thing to understand in friendships is that dynamics will change, and they should change, they should evolve, because you as individuals and you as a duo, you as a pair or a trio, whatever you are changing and you are evolving as people. And so it's important that you expect and respect when that happens with one another. And if you've got a friend in your life that I feel like takes you for advantage, doesn't understand that, you have your own things going on, never ask you how you are, my first piece of advice is to communicate. Always try to sit someone down and just explain, whether it's in a couple of sentences or an hour-long coffee shop conversation. Try to explain, and always trust people's actions over their words. They'll say what they say in that moment, and that's great. But over the next few weeks and months, if you don't feel like they are changing, or you don't feel like they're giving you what you need, then you have every right to walk away. And to be honest, even if they do give you what you need or you've asked for and they've respected everything that you've said, you don't have to be someone's friend. But for the friendships that claim to listen, they claim to hear you, and they understand, and they want to do better, and they want to be more considerate, and they're going to ask you how you are more, and not just totally trauma dump on you every time you see them, but time and time again they keep letting you down and they don't show up for you in the ways that you need. Well, there's a couple things going on here. You've explained it to them and they've not listened. That's a red flag in that person, not in your friendship. Your friends should understand and respect your boundaries. And if they don't at the end of the day, then they're not your friend. They should at least want to if they can't. You know, if I can't understand why my friend's acting a certain way, I should at least want to understand. And if I don't even want to understand, what much of a friend am I? And I think it's really important to understand all of that as a full picture when it comes to setting boundaries, because you can't keep beating yourself up for not successfully setting a boundary with someone who doesn't respect you to begin with. And I think there's going to be a huge shift in society in the way that we live our lives and the way that we maintain our friendships in 2024, 2025 and so on, because there's a huge conversation about boundary setting. You see quotes on Instagram about it every single second day. And although they're cute and they're funny and sometimes they hit the nail on the head and sometimes they're totally ridiculous and don't relate or resonate to anything that's going on for you, it's proof that there is a shift in a society and in our mindsets and how we are maintaining our friendships. We have this expectation of respecting one another, of staying loyal to one another, and we also have this expectation of ourselves now that we're going to learn how to set boundaries, and we're going to set them with the people that we need to. And having to set boundaries with someone doesn't mean you've got a bad relationship. Sure, Henry sets boundaries with me on stuff and I set boundaries with him. And it's an important way to function as a person so that you can function, so that you can communicate and understand and thrive together. Anyways, I hope that this episode helped. If you have any questions about boundary setting, please feel free to go onto our Instagram at Girls Club Poddy and shoot your questions over there, whether it's on DM or commenting on one of our recent posts. I really want to open the conversation up a lot more about boundary setting, and I really want to work with you guys directly, whether that's one-on-one or in small groups, to help you learn how to boundary set and to help you understand the importance of doing it and the consequences of doing it. Like I said at the start of this, my relationship with my parents has become something that I never thought it would be. This time a few years ago, I said it in last week's episode, I didn't even want my dad to walk me down the aisle. And it just goes to show that setting boundaries is one of the most powerful things you can do in terms of looking after yourself. And look, when you learn how to set these boundaries and you learn how to respect yourself, everything else does fall together. It falls in place because you know, okay, I'm not doing that on a Wednesday night because I'm going to be exhausted from work that day. And even though my friends are begging me to go out and have a drink with them, that's not going to serve me and it's not what I need. So I'm really sorry, guys, but I'm not going to make it on Wednesday. It's just not going to work out, but maybe next time I'll come. And instead tonight I'm going to chill. I'm going to take my makeup off, put a face mask on, or I'm going to go for a solo date to the cinema. And it's going to serve the needs that I have for myself. And that is how it was so intertwined in your self-love journey. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I will see you guys next week for some juicy dilemmas. Don't forget to send them at dilemmas@girlsplusclub.com. See you later.